One Piece chapter 1008. Now this chapter came with a lot of our expectations being met in terms of who this Oden individual is, and I think for the most part the community rounded it down to about 2 individuals, maybe 3, and that was either Onimaru or Kanjiro using his Devil Fruit ability. Now there were some people saying that it could have been Hiyori's teapot, because we know that she has a teapot that has like a Devil Fruit ability, but of course that wasn't the case because that seemed kind of out of left field. Now I was more of the former just because it made more sense for it to be Onimaru, just because I thought that Kanjiro was incapacitated for the time being, or even potentially dead. But of course Oda's usual antics came into play here. We come to find out that Kanjiro is still alive, and I'm not too sure how to feel about that. But again, it seems like Oda is opening up something for these guys, because we also get the reveal of Orochi's return in this chapter, which was something we also expected, and I'll talk more about this later in this video. But before we get into this, subscribe if you're new here and like the video. But back onto One Piece chapter 1008. Now the first section of the chapter pretty much focuses more on Kanjiro coming back into play. One of the more reasonable outcomes for this, if anything, the time travel theories were out of hand, because that would just break a lot of things that was set up in the story, the main one being Oden's death, of course. But this chapter sort of marks the return of Orochi making his comeback, because we're seeing Kanjiro is actually here and he's going for the kill. Now initially all the scabbards were shocked and almost believed the fake Oden that was in front of them, and this is natural, you know, given that this person that they're trying to avenge and the emotional ties that they have to Oden is so huge that just by seeing his appearance they could easily be fooled. Now the excuse that Kanjiro used was that he traveled here from the past, but again Ashura Doji and Raizo were not buying it, given the fact that they witnessed Oden's death at that point in time, and Raizo even adds on to that saying that people cannot go into the past, you know, going off of what Toki said. But again, the scabbards being overwhelmed by Oden's appearance let their guard down, which eventually gave Kanjiro the chance to stab Ashura Doji with an attack that was actually meant for Kinemon. And it was at this point that all of them recognized that Oden was fake and was created by Kanjiro's Devil Fruit ability. Now initially I thought Kanjiro was dead, but Okiku states that she couldn't kill Kanjiro, and I guess the reasoning here was that they still had some emotional ties to him. And we have to remember that even though Kanjiro lived his life as Orochi's spy, it doesn't really take away all the moments that they had with him growing up. And even Ashura states that because he was one of theirs, the blade wasn't as sharp, which I think was very interesting, because that could easily tie into hockey, and when one is wavering it can affect their resolve, which ultimately affects one's effectiveness with attacks. Now I do want to say that with Kanjiro back into play, given how competent he is as a villain, I feel like this is going to be trouble for the alliance moving forward, because Kanjiro is actually really powerful, and his Devil Fruit also involves trickery, you know, using someone else's appearance to deceive others. That would be bad for both the Beast Pirates and the Straw Hat Alliance alike, right? Now the name of the chapter is called Ashura Doji, so he was sort of the focus of this chapter when it came to this section with the scabbards, and he had his moment in which he saved the other scabbards from the explosion. And this chapter kind of puts him in the same light as the chapter we had with Hyogoro, in which Oda seems to make it look like they're gonna die. Now do I think that Ashura Doji is done for? Probably not, but is he heavily injured? Most likely. And if things couldn't get any worse for the scabbards, they then run into Jack here. Now both Jack and scabbards are injured, but Jack has the upper hand here, you know, given the nature of Zoans, especially ancient Zoans. Now Inu did say that he was going to take care of Jack here, but it seems like this is a battle that he's going to lose. But I did like how Inuarashi and Jack had these remarks in which they talk about how they don't have the things that gave them the advantage, you know, with Jack's case being the poison and Inu being the Sulong. I thought that was really cool back and forth between the two. Now we do have to remember that Inu and Neko were about comparable to Jack in base form, but right now we know that Inu is missing a leg, and we also haven't seen Jack's hybrid form. So again, I mentioned this before, this battle is one that I think Inu will most likely lose, and depending on where Sanji is heading towards right now, Sanji might be the person to save Inu and fight Jack. So we'll see what happens moving forward. We then move on to Orochi's side of things, in which we come to find out that he's alive, as a lot of us expected. I think that was the more obvious ones, if anything. Him having his head chopped off, along with the fact that he has a mythical snake Devil Fruit, definitely gave us some foreshadowing that he was definitely going to come back, and we're seeing that in this chapter right now. Now as far as Orochi goes, I'm not sure what role he's going to play, but given that his scene was shown alongside Momonosuke's scene, his defeat might come at the hands of Momo. And we have to remember that he was betrayed by Kaido, so I'm sure that he doesn't have any allies and is pretty much against everyone that isn't his faction. So he might actually play some part in helping the alliance win against Kaido and the Beast Pirates. We also know that he has a mythical Zoan Devil Fruit, and we might get to see a different side from Orochi where he's a lot stronger. And I do wonder how his hybrid form is going to look. Like, Orochi's Devil Fruit has a very awkward design, so his hybrid form is something that I can't really envision right now, at least in terms of how it's going to look, right? It is going to look strange when he does go into hybrid, if he does have a hybrid form anyways. Now moving on to Momo's side of things, we come to find out that Momo has a better control over his Devil Fruit now, and you can sort of see Oda setting something up for Momo in which he's going to achieve some sort of power that will allow him to do something major. Now I do have a video about this, so I'll leave that for that video. Now we also come to find out that Momo is also aware of Luffy's condition. The initial conclusion would be observation haki, right? Perhaps due to all the trauma that he's experienced in Wano, he's awakened some form of observation here. Now we do know that one can sense the presence of others with observation, but Momo also knows about Luffy's physical condition. So I'm not sure if we've seen this before. It might be similar to what Rayleigh did on Rushkaina, where he could not only just sense the presence of the animals, but also know how strong they are in comparison to Luffy. We also know that Momo has the voice of all things as well, so that could be something that we might get more of here, but definitely an interesting turn of events for Momo here. It seems like some sort of power up is going to happen here, Devil Fruit wise, and also in terms of haki and potentially the voice of all things, right? I feel like Oda is going to delve more into these abilities that we know nothing of yet. And then we finally move on to the final portion of this chapter, with us returning back to the Worst Generation versus Big Mom and Kaido, and I think we're going to stay here for the next upcoming chapters. Now for the most part, the Supernovas haven't made any progress against the Yonko yet. Big Mom and Kaido being together is just too much for them to handle right now, and again, you know, reasonably so. Like, not too many characters are taking on two Yonkos, right? And so they come up with the idea to split them up, and I think Law's ability is going to be very essential here. Now I can definitely see the Yonkos getting separated, but I'm not sure if they can keep them separated. I think that's really the main question here. I would imagine that Kid and Luffy will fight Kaido, while Killer and Zoro will take on Big Mom, with Law acting as support for both of them. It's definitely hard to say what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, but it looks like Luffy has somewhat gained his stamina back, so he might go into Gear 4th again, as well as potentially seeing more from Kid, because again, he's been very lackluster as of recent, right? Kid hasn't really shown much to us, right? Now we do get to see Kaido's hybrid form here, and it looks pretty cool, but I do want to see how he fights in this form, because, you know, he has the elements of his dragon here, and he's also fighting in a form that is relative to base form, so I wonder if his fighting style actually changes. Now something that I did notice was that Kaido has 6 horns in this form. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to be anything important, but it's definitely something that I did notice. We know that he has 2 from his base form, and we know that he gets another 2 from his dragon form. So where exactly did the last 2 horns come from when he went into hybrid form here? I'm not sure if that's something Oda is going to address, but I feel like that was the detail Oda left there for a reason. So interesting stuff there with Kaido. There might be more to what's going on there, maybe some sort of awakening, but we'll see what happens moving forward. But overall, this was a really good chapter. Definitely looking forward to what's going to happen to Momo, and especially things at the rooftop with the Supernovas versus the Yonkos, because I feel like that's the most essential part of this war right now. Everything depends on that fight, right? No break, so we should be getting a chapter next week, so that's great. But again, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content. It is Pharaoh, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.